I manage ECA's commercial buildings program, so I'm the business team. So I will be talking from a business perspective, and the case study that I'm going to talk about is really for small businesses. So, very briefly, ECA is our the sort of government's delivery arm really for its energy efficiency and renewable energy policies. We work across all sectors of the economy, and so that's for homes and businesses. And we have a number of different ways of trying to encourage better energy efficiency and renewable energy behaviours. Our EnergyWise brand is for our residential colleagues. ECA Business is our focus on businesses, and we also have our products team who work on energy labelling like minimum energy performance standards and the Energy Star program. So I'm going to talk about our approach, which I'm sure you'll be very familiar. It's that standard kind of, behavioural or the standard economic approach. We look at it's like a dartboard. So we start off looking at what is the size of the potential that we're talking about. We start off from a technical perspective. If you were to implement all the changes that you possibly could, what kind of technical potential would you have out there? Then put an economic framework across it, and then put more of a real world kind of focus on it and look at what is the kind of saving that you think you can get. So from our perspective in business, it's things like lighting, HVAC, refrigeration, process heat, motor systems, compressed air and transport. Those are the kind of biggest areas that we work in. And we then talk about barriers. And barriers is just really a fancy way for why people don't do things or why businesses don't do things. And the consistent research that we do, our marketing and comms team, Pat's team, spend an awful lot of time and energy each year going through business monitor surveys and bothering lots of businesses to ask them what it is that they think about energy efficiency and why they do or don't do things. And the consistent responses that we do get are really around that knowledge, time and money. I'm generalising, there's a lot more detail in that, but it's generally in those areas. So what we do is we try and design and deliver cost-effective programs to address these barriers. And we generally sort of bunch them into three main sectors. The ones around raising market awareness and demand, so there are information programs. Those that are around trying to enhance industry capability, that's our training and education programs. And then looking at how do we incentivise more of a fast track uptake for projects, so that's the financial assistance. When anyone thinks about ECA, that's most of what they think about. They think about, show me the money. This is really just to show you what we're trying to do by focusing on these three areas, is to take much more of a holistic approach, because as C said, it's not about a silver bullet. It isn't about just about buying petajoules. It's about trying to make sure that there is actually a sustainable market out there that can serve business demand. So that's why we focus on training and capability programs for the energy services industry, as well as trying to incentivise businesses to actually buy those services by giving them a little bit of an extra financial push. And the point that we're trying to achieve by doing that is, if you look on the left-hand side here, we look at this is where we are now. There's a small amount of natural uptake, and there's a whole much bigger area of unrealised economic potential. By having these kind of three types of initiatives, more at the beginning, over time, moving more to an information-based kind of campaign, we hope to influence that natural uptake and make it larger. That's at a high level. Pretty much. I won't go into this in a huge amount of detail. It's just to give you an idea as to the range of products and services that we have out there amongst the whole business team to try and affect the change that we're trying to look for in the business market. And our business team, at an annual budget, we've got around about $18 million a year, whereas our residential colleagues have got somewhere in the 300 and, what is it, Mike?
Internal, about $8 million a year.
Yeah, so we're trying to influence a much larger business market with a lot smaller amount of dollars. So conscious of time, I've kind of cracked through all of that and get on to trying to talk about the case study that I want to talk about. And that's our Energising Business program, which was set up in around about 2009, trying to focus on small to medium-sized enterprises. It was set up on the basis of some successful interventions that ECA had had with the plastics and tourism industries. So we felt we had some good models to go by, and our analysis showed us that there was sufficient potential out there for small and medium-sized enterprises to make the same kinds of savings. For small businesses, much the same. The only thing for them is energy just isn't a priority. It's, these people are out there, they're running a business. Energy for them is a fixed cost, something that somebody, in amongst all the other things they have to do, pays an electricity bill or a gas bill. That's basically it. So our proposed intervention that we had here was effectively a subsidised package of an energy assessment and some help towards the implementation measures using a set of energy experts. So we went out and we contracted a number of third-party providers, a range of different organisations. We had some that were what I would call energy service companies. So these are people that regularly provide sort of energy efficiency advice. They may be energy auditors, they may be product suppliers. We also had, most importantly, one industry association that we included. And it's really the difference in terms of the program that industry association offered in comparison to the others that I want to talk about today. So this is what happened. We had 2 or 3 large providers. So these were organisations that we fully expected had the capacity to deal with a small to medium-sized business market at scale. These guys didn't perform as we expected. Actually, what happened was, for them, they were still focusing on the big business. So even though they had the capacity and the capability to actually deliver a really large program, it just really wasn't a priority for them. They found that the cost of sale of dealing with lots and lots of small businesses just made it not worthwhile for them. The smaller providers were much more successful one-on-one, but they couldn't reach very many businesses. So some of these smaller providers, they were reaching sort of 5 to 10 organisations over the course of 2 years. Now, that's great for the 5 to 10 organisations that they reached, and for them, that was a successful interaction. But from our perspective, when you look at the number of small to medium-sized businesses in the market, around about 250,000, those kind of numbers just don't mean you're actually making any difference. So the one organisation that was different was the Industry Association. They did have around about 80 businesses that signed up over the 2 years, and some of those participants achieved around about a 40% saving on their total energy cost.
What was the industry? Was it the energy EMAS or?
It's the Employers and Manufacturers Association in the northern region.
Okay.
So their membership base is around about 8,500 members.
Wow, okay.
So the first year total, they got around about 175 megawatt hours. Year 2 savings, we're waiting for their reports to come in at the end of March, but we're expecting around about a gigawatt hours worth of savings out of these businesses. So what was different about this particular program? So the main offering for energising business was an audit by an expert, and then some assistance in terms of actually implementing the energy savings opportunities identified in the audit. What was different about the program from the Employers and Manufacturers Association was the fact that it was much more social based. So it started off with the fact that the EMA already provides sort of training services to its members. So its members already saw the organisation as a trusted advisor. Businesses in the same association are often competing. This is probably more applicable to smaller industry associations, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But if they're in the same industry, you can pretty much guarantee there's a bit of competition going on. I think the most important things were it was workshop based. So there was a group learning environment which involved all the businesses in the program. So instead of it being a one-on-one engagement for each individual business, there was a group focus. The other important thing here is it was led from the top. CEO involvement was mandatory for the first workshop in the program. And there's a really good little case study of the beef jerky manufacturer Jack Link's. I don't know if anyone's come across these guys, so you can go down to your local fix and get your little beef jerky. They're a really big exporter. They export a lot of their product to the US. And they joined the program 2 years ago, and their CEO must have come along under protest to the first workshop. It sounds like he started off being quite dissenting in his views and his opinions. And after he'd completed the first workshop, he was so enthused, he went back to the office, immediately created a position of energy manager, and has been one of the biggest advocates for the program. So I think for us, make sure you're involving the CEO at the top is the most important thing. Ongoing mentoring. So the businesses that were in the program had homework in between each of their workshop sessions, and Sustainable Edge, who is the organisation that delivers the program for EMA, regularly gets on the phone, cajoles, nags, generally provides that ongoing support. So it isn't something that is a one-off, it's something that is ongoing and reinforcing across the year. And the last thing is that they get something to show for it. So at the end of the year, they do, if they complete their second audit and they show how they've managed to make their savings, they have the ability to get this particular eco-warranty label. If they do a few more things, they can actually go for ISO 14001 certification. So it gives them something to show for what it is that they've done. So what did we learn from the difference between that kind of program and the standard offering that we had from some of the other providers? That whole idea about group learning through workshops and the ongoing support through mentoring, plus getting something at the end of it, was the thing that was most attractive to the businesses that joined up. I think industry associations provide much more of a that sort of homogenous group of stakeholders that there's a lot more ability to benchmark between your peers. Industry associations are a lot closer to their members. They understand what their day-to-day business challenges are, much more likely to be able to frame things in the kind of language that their stakeholders are going to understand. We think that these programs that allow participants to actually share their learning experiences, if you're in a workshop environment, same thing we are today, you're going to meet people over coffee and share your ideas. If you're just having a static kind of go and do an audit, have a conversation with one customer, it doesn't allow that customer to learn perhaps as much as if they'd talked to several of their peers working in the same environment and sharing their experiences. And the other thing is that you've got to engage at the highest level of an organisation. If your senior leadership team don't think it's important, the business won't move. It's quite simple. So here's what we're kind of doing differently now. This is an example of the organisations that we now have what we've called industry sector programs. We put out a media release yesterday for the latest one, which is Silver Fern Farms. So each of these organisations, either an industry association in itself or a really large multi-faceted group, so like Ansco Foods or Fletcher Building or Silver Fern Farms. And so we're actually working much more through these industry associations. So very quickly, I'm hoping someone like Kevin can frame some of these things in terms of the theory to practice idea, but in really, really simple language, from my perspective, go for groups. SMEs are really, really hard to reach. Everybody knows this. Using industry associations or peer groups is much more effective than a one-on-one engagement. It allows for that group learning and better peer pressure to actually try and incentivise a change behaviour. And that whole start at the top and don't let go. So senior management involvement at the start and that ongoing contact and support to reinforce those changes of behaviour. Yes, that's a great idea, fantastic. If you're struggling with this, why don't you talk to so-and-so? They've also had a problem. So that whole sort of ongoing support and mentoring is really important to reinforce those actions. So I think I've hopefully managed to catch up a little bit of time. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to take those.